it again. That's what I did as soon as I finished the Acolyte episode 5, gents, because there was just a lot that happened. Everyone in the Star Wars world, welcome in. Star Wars News Net Live. It's Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern time once again. And again, like, roll it again. That's what I had to do as soon as the episode was over. You know, it wasn't the greatest Star Wars that we've ever seen. Certainly was far from the worst, but when you get just the lightsaber action, all that happened that episode, I had to just kind of hit, all right, play again. I need to go back, watch that through, see what's up. But oh my goodness, it's, you know, I don't want to like take too long before I say hello to you two, but I feel like it's been years since I have been on here, but it's only been 1 week. I missed 1 week. It's been like 2 weeks since.
It's been so long.
I had not missed a live show since, I believe, like October. Like, I had gone straight through for like the last, 8 months or whatever, except for we took 1 week off around Christmas time. Like, and that's the only live show. So I was like weird on a Thursday night, not getting my stuff together to talk about Star Wars or doing any other show this last week and a half. So it's good to be back with you both. I am absolutely thrilled to talk Star Wars today. In the chat, I want to know everyone's opinion on the episode. I want to know, like, a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you at with this? Like, give me your theories, give me your predictions. I want all of it tonight. But Luke, Jecki jammed, like, you had to go hard in the name today
for your little name honor. There. She was such a good character. I loved Jecki. I mean,
we're going to get into it. You'll have your space to mourn. I will give you the proper platform to release frustration, anger, sadness. If you need to go through all the stages of grief tonight, Jay and I are here
to hitting them all
in this. Jay can lend you his shoulder to cry on all the way from Hawaii if necessary. Jay, how are we doing this evening?
Doing pretty great, actually. There's a lot to talk about, obviously, with the episode. But it's great to even have you. I mean, like, man, it was. I was under the pressure last week having to operate the controls for the stream, but
your absence was felt, Tyler.
Yes.
It was fun to take a little bit of week off. I was on vacation with my family. And have you guys ever been to, like, before we get into Star Wars, we went to, it's like the HOH, like, rainforest in Olympic National Park up like past, like near like Forks, Washington, like where they filmed Twilight. Actually, it's like close to like where there's like in 45 minutes, like an hour away from there. And I don't remember what place, but we went there and it was the greatest hike I think I've ever done. And we've been hiking, I've been hiking a few really cool places, but it was just incredible. Like the views were insane. It was like walking around indoor. Like, it was literally as if you're walking around indoor. I was waiting for Wicket to jab me with his, spear from underneath there, a Yub Nub celebration to take hold. But nonetheless, I made it out alive, at least, unlike the Empire did from episode 6. So real quick, give me your rating for the episode, scale of 1 to 10, and your favorite moment from episode 5 before we start getting into the bulk of the episode and the predictions and theories we have for the season's future. I'll throw it to you first, Jay. Scale of 1 to 10, favorite moment. What do you got?
I'd say it was a 7.
Okay.
I think that it was a solid 7. I think that I really like the lightsaber action, like all of us probably did. That was definitely the best part. I would say that I kind of had a few issues regarding some character decisions. So I was like, that was a little bit weird, or I'm like, kind of don't really see why certain characters did what they did. But besides that, no, I thought it was pretty solid episode. Definitely the best of the series so far, in my opinion.
Agreed.
And then my favorite moment, I wouldn't really call it a moment, but I think, excuse me, the Sith villain, I think they're calling him like the Stranger.
The Stranger, yes.
Yeah. So I think probably my favorite moment was just like seeing him using cortosis in action. And I'll be totally honest, I didn't think it was actually like a real thing. I didn't realize there was precedent for it. But then our very own Josh Atkins put out a really great article on Cortosis on our website and talking about like the material and how like it's an actual thing in Legends. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's an actual material that is affecting and making the lightsabers go kaput for a few seconds. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. And I'm really glad that we have something like that now.
Absolutely. It was really fun to watch some people that like yourself maybe that aren't really familiar with what Cortosis is, and probably watching it through the lens of, oh my gosh, like what is happening to these lightsabers right now, or even like hardcore like maybe Legends people that are familiar with the depths of Wikipedia and do know what Cortosis is, but and are like, could it be? Like, is it like that has to be, right? Like this putting the pieces together as the episode goes on. I love it when they do things like that and they don't just explain it to us like, this is Cortosis and it has the ability to make a lightsaber go, as Jake would say, kaput for 5 seconds. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm glad that they don't just do that. And instead we just get to watch it and figure it out and also just go, that's pretty cool. So we have a 7 from Jay. Luke, where you at?
I am going to go a little bit higher and I'm going to go with an 8. I'm a big Jedi guy. I'm a big The Force guy. So the High Republic has always been a big thing for me. So I love this lightsaber heavy action episode. And yeah, I'm going to mirror Jay here, and I'm going to go specifically my favorite moment. The favorite thing was the stranger, Qimir, headbutting. Using the Darth teeth helmet to headbutt a lightsaber. I've never seen something so brash and so bold. I mean, and yeah, I can absolutely agree that I had no idea that Cortosis existed, and it's really cool. I know it's a Legends thing, and I think I saw one person say it shows up in Thrawn Alliances, maybe. So I mean, there's a canon precedent for it as well. So yeah, it's just a really cool deep dive that they took from Star Wars, just from the lore of Star Wars, and put it into a live action show in front of everyone's eyes. I thought that was just a really cool decision to do. So yeah, I feel great about this episode. I really liked it.
So you're a Star Wars fan who loves the Force, huh? Like you're kind of, it's 1 in a million there, I guess.
Some
Luke,
people are really big on the smugglers.
No,
some people are really big on, hey, don't come at me, Tyler. Come on.
The Star Wars fan that loves the Force, eh? So I do agree. The Cortosis stuff was pretty spectacular. So I actually am at an 8 for this episode. I wanted to go higher, but I couldn't do that just for the sake of action choreography alone. Like, just because the action choreography was great, there's still some dialogue that's a little choppy, particularly between Mae and Osha, that we'll get into their relationship a little bit more as we go along. But an 8, I felt very strongly about it. It's my highest, rated episode of the season. I've been about a 5.5 to a 6.5 on the rest. And so to get an 8 from me, I felt like was pretty big. So you guys don't watch Star Wars or movies or shows with me like in person. So my favorite moment, this is not a favorite moment like I am so glad this happened, but it was when Jecki and Yord died. And not because I was just jumping out of my seat that they killed them, but when I watch movies completely silent. Like, I do not move for the entire time. Like, I might not, my body just stays so rigid unless I'm just shifting which butt cheek I'm putting a little more pressure on in my seat. You know what I mean? And when I'm watching a TV show, it's pretty much the same thing. When Jecki died, it gave an audible gasp. And for me to the show to actually get me to do that, it says something at least about how I reacted to that moment. So I was like, that has to be the moment for me. Like, I just don't react really when I'm watching things. Like, I'm pretty stoic. And so when it just happens so fast, he broke his saber off, the little knife saber, and just the quick jabs like that. It was just, and then we can talk about Yord's death just being my kind of a joint moment there, just in general, of both of them dying. Snapping the neck, like in front, like, and they showed it on the camera. is there a more just like violent, like gruesome death in all of Star Wars that we see, like in terms of like live action? I couldn't really think of one. Maybe I'm missing something really obvious. Obviously, like Anakin burning, he doesn't die, but like him literally burning alive is a pretty, gruesome thing. But I think there's something different about like the burning alive versus just someone like almost like smiling cruelly as he's just enjoying breaking someone's neck. Like that to me felt almost like I was watching a HBO show for a moment. Like that's how someone might die. So that's where I am with all of that. So we have a 7, an 8, and an 8. So we're doing pretty good. That's our highest rated one so far. I'd be curious to see what everyone else thinks. But let's take a moment, everyone, and let's say goodbye to a couple of really good friends. Jecki, the bright Padawan that gave us a blessing of green dual sabers that we had not seen since that of the Clone Wars with young Ahsoka Tano. You met your end far too soon. You were but a child, as formidable as you were, still but a child with a whole life left to live, taken from us by Darth Arms way too soon. And Yord, I must say that on our final prediction show, when I gotta find the clip, but I'm pretty sure I'm quoted as
You
saying
did
Yord
nail
is
it.
going to be very endearing to people after a while and then die an extremely gruesome death, and that's kind of what we got. But farewell, Yord, and may all the members of the Yord horde, take comfort, seek counsel, seek solace in your friends, for we shall never see his like again. Okay, whatever. Anyway, Jecki Yord, were you guys surprised that they both died? I was shocked. I could not believe that they killed both of them off. Luke, did you think that there was a chance that both would die? I thought maybe one, maybe one.
And I'm kind of with you on that. I thought maybe one, but I didn't think that was even a very high chance. I thought they were both coming out of this thing, that they were going to be central to this entire season. But I was very shocked to see the 3-hole punch go through the back of Jecki, and then just a very gruesome, appalling scene of Yord getting that quick 180. Look, I was shocked. I mean, and I'm a lot like you. I'm not talking very much during my viewing of movies or shows. I'm not talking much. I'm not moving much. So I think when we watch episode 7 together, we're gonna have a good time.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, those got me like off the couch. I was like, no, yeah. So I was very, very taken aback.
Both of them dying within like 5 minutes of each other it was shocking to me. Like, I thought that we would have a slow whittle down of all of them by the end of the season, but in one episode, especially when like all the other Jedi died and they showed, Jacinto's character just wiping through them, it was like, okay, maybe they show him being super powerful now that all 3 live. Jay, were you surprised that they both died, or are you kind of like in the camp that, I kind of feel like they were going to bite the dust?
No, I absolutely didn't expect both of them. Like you said, I mean, the first thing that I noticed in that episode was like, wow, the stranger, Manny Jacinto's character, is really tanking all of these Jedi. I mean,
right.
I think the count was about 7, right? 7 Jedi that go and confront him. He's taking on like 3-4 people at a time, and I'm like,
it was
wow,
like 5
really
at once
good.
there at the beginning.
Yeah, and I was like really surprised. I'm like, wow, he's a really strong, coordinated fighter. We don't actually often see many 1v4, 1v5 fights, right? If anything, maybe we get 1v3 at the most. So for one guy to take on 5 Jedi at one time, that's really impressive.
The last time we saw like I think something like that, we saw Rey and Kylo do the 2v whatever it is, like 7 or 8 guards that exist, and then we saw Palp's obviously doing the 1v4, but it's very rare that we see these solo warriors taking on an entire group, and it's it's pretty exciting to watch when done well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think choreography was really spot on.
Hmm.
But like you guys, I think I was kind of expecting Yord to bite it. You know, like I think like the odds I had of him getting killed was like a 50-50 chance. But Jecki, absolutely not. I thought that she like I mean like you brought up the dual wield fight sequence. That was actually gonna be like my top moments if it wasn't for Cortosis.
Hmm.
So
So both of them dying was pretty shocking. I thought it was going to be kind of like the Star Trek, original series meme of the red shirts, go on the away missions. So they always are the ones that die. And I was like, okay, they got this out of the way. And then when Yord actually gets his quad slice or whatever and then escapes, I was like, okay, he's safe now because he had his near brush with death and he's going to be okay. And I started to get a little worried for Jecki, but I'm like, they just killed 5 Jedi so fast. They're not going to go ahead and kill more at this point, even if we hadn't seen those Jedi really ever before. But just doing both of them, it really, I joked 2 weeks ago when I was on here, not joked, I was serious, but saying how it's the High Republic, but it doesn't feel like the High Republic. Well, it certainly feels like the High Republic, now, whenever they go from, taking these characters we start to get attached to, we love, and then they just, kill them in a absolutely horrifying, gruesome way. Like that's the key to the High Republic is we're going to take what you love and we're going to crush it in front of you. And
Y'all love Stellan
probably,
Geos, right?
oh my gosh. Or, the worst death in the High Republic is Loading Great Storm. Like for me, like that's just, oh my gosh. Or Kev Mozink. Like one of those two, I think, is where I'm at. Stellan obviously is very, really bad. I feel like this sentiment, just when I was thinking I might like Yord, I think that's like the general sentiment that I've seen online is like the Yord Horde has finally grown to this place where, everyone's like, yes, Yord. And all right, well, you tried hard, buddy. You tried hard. So let's go ahead. Let's walk through that first fight scene because Osha wakes up, after she gets force pushed, and immediately we watch the 1v5 fights between the stranger and the 5 red shirt Jedi, I guess we will call them. Obviously, I think the choreography here is spectacular. We see the Kaldorian, like Plo Koon like character get the,
Ithia
jab.
Pon.
What?
Her name is Ithia Pon.
Ithia Pon, rest in peace, gets stabbed in the chest. Another Jedi kind of gets the gut slice. And then, the biggest one was the double impaling and then the beheading that happened as well. So for you guys, I want to walk me through what your thoughts were. The opening, scene there where it's just, the stranger going 1v5. I thought it was fantastic. The choreography was nailed. And the style that he uses is just so like reckless, but calculated at the same time. And I'll get into why I feel that way on how that's important to his character later on when we get into some theories. But go ahead, Luke, give me your thoughts on that opening sequence.
It really needed to be what it was since episode 4 left us where it did. I was really wanting to pick right back up where we were. So I'm really glad that we essentially got that. I mean, we didn't have to wait another week to see like how that played out. We really just got back into it. So I was really happy that we started there, and wow, did that deliver? I mean, when I was watching 1v5, the stranger, I was like, man, is he going to go down? Like, there's no way these Jedi Masters are going to lose 5v1. I mean, come on. Oh shoot, it's 4v1 now. Well, I mean, that's still good. Okay. 3, okay, 2. Oh, dang. Like it's just a
You really thought he wasn't gonna mow him down? Like I saw those no names there, and I'm like, they're goners. There's
like,
no way these no names are gonna do anything. Like they're gonna get mowed down to set up that, Darth Teeth, Darth Arms, Soul Crusher, whatever you want to call him, is absolutely, a force to be reckoned with.
I thought that maybe one of them would to then have a Jecki Yord Soul or Osha come in to like help him out, and they would have a little bit more plot guarding to help maybe balance out the fight. But no, none of those people survived. And I think it's gruesome, but I mean the coolest part that I thought was the impale and then force pull to double impale. I was like,
Followed by
I've never,
the beheading stroke.
yeah, I've never even, yes. So it was just the coolest thing. I was so impressed by that. I loved it.
Jay, what about you?
I did
Because
want
you've
to,
been big on choreography.
yeah. I did want to commend the fighting style of
Yes.
the Stranger, because it is very brutal. It's very visceral. And it's like Luke said, it's reckless. I think it was really smart that, well, first off, like, here's a guy. When you're fighting a big group like that, the most smart thing is to make big, sweeping strikes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, do these big circular moves that make sure you attack everyone at once. I thought that was really smart. But also even just how this guy fights. He uses his helmets, and he literally just like headbutts these lightsabers, and then he has cortosis on his arms, and then I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It's like a like a Wonder Woman bracelet or something, and I'm thinking like, wow, this is actually kind of like, yeah, this is fighting style that is not as much seen in other parts of the Star Wars universe. So I thought that was really great. And here's a guy that's using all of his body, head,
Yes.
arms, doing kicks. And
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
I'm sure, and hey, heads, shoulders, knees, and toes, and heads and shoulders. He's probably using that for his hair, right?
Absolutely.
That's
Got
good.
that luscious locks.
He's got the
going on.
locks. Manny Jacinto's
Yeah,
got the
He
locks.
looked good.
So his fighting style, I think, directly correlates with who he is and
Sure,
what he's
absolutely.
revealed to be.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like jump the gun and go into it, but if we're going to talk about his fighting style, I think it's a deeper than just he fights this way because he was trained to fight this way. And I think that he's genuinely on his own. There's been a lot of theories out there about him being an apprentice, him being like a Sith Lord. And, in the Entertainment Weekly article, he says he's a Sith Lord. Star Wars didn't necessarily confirm Sith Lord. They said like kind of mysterious dark side user that the Jedi might think to be a Sith. So they're playing a little bit coy there. I'm not saying he's not a Sith. I at first was thinking no. I'm starting to think yes at this point. Or at least he believes himself to be one. I think he is truly on his own, Lone Ranger, and he fights like someone who has 100% had to scratch and claw for everything that they've had, and fighting like I am me against the universe. There is no, like, not necessarily that the Sith Master and Apprentice is akin to a Jedi Master and Apprentice brotherhood, father son, mother daughter role that could play there, but I do think that like he is devoid of any sort of companionship in the sense that he wants this pupil because he doesn't necessarily want to be in this position anymore. And we could talk about how I think like a real Sith Lord is ultimately gonna make their way and squash him like a bug, perhaps at some point, either at the end of the season or in a future season of this show. But I do think that he is kind of like his own lone wolf kind of right now, and he fights like that. Like he really fights like someone who's been backed into a corner, and is gonna claw his way out. I don't know if you guys get a similar vibe, but that's kind of where I stand with how his fighting style maybe translates to who he is as a character.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. It almost reminds me of the kind of the tenacity and just like wild nature of like Kylo Ren, where he's definitely dark side, and there's just kind of like an anger and kind of just a rawness to it, where it's not very formed, but it's very powerful. It's very good.
Right.
So it's kind of where my brain went when I was watching him fight, really.
So they move on into the episode, and let's say, all right, let's go ahead and jump a little bit. Soul and him face off for a moment. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So Yord takes Osha, and they kind of like are, trying to go away. The civilian must get to the ship. Props to Yord, still trying to follow, the rules moments before his demise. Like, gotta tip your hat to him, right? And the scene where the stranger and Soul are talking to each other, Master Soul. And like, what did you guys think about their kind of duel and their moments that they had before we jump over to Jecki versus Mae and then Jecki versus the stranger? I'll throw it to you, Jay.
I thought it was kind of interesting that they did know each other to some degree. I don't think there was like any indication of that prior to this episode. So to even have that scene and to have that little bit of history that they hint at, it's really interesting. I mean, we still don't know much about Manny Jacinto's character, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Are you hinting that when he says you don't remember me is beyond their brief meeting in, at the town, I forgot what planet they were on. Yeah, he's the apothecary, but like what planet were they on? Like Ekoth or something. It doesn't really matter that much, but you're basically saying that you think there is history there that goes beyond just their brief meeting, and Soul maybe doesn't remember what happened. Okay, so you think that there's something deeper here. I'm assuming you're gonna point that back to like Bryndock. I'm assuming something that happened at Bryndock, perhaps.
Maybe. I mean, we still don't know. I mean, I don't like there
really
wasn't
have 3
any
episodes left.
Yeah, there wasn't any indication that Manny Jacinto's character was on Bryndock, and that he was with Mae and Osha,
Right.
like that coven of witches. So it's really interesting. It's like, okay, where does he fit in on the timeline?
Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was something deeper. I thought it was just the the brief meeting. If there are a couple of hooded figures in the background in episode 3 with the witches. I thought they were just kind of like the old great mothers, I guess, so to speak. But it's possible there is another person lurking there that we aren't really aware.
I mean, but at the same time,
I would assume we get a flashback episode that is going to answer some questions about all that.
At the same time, though, I think it was like kind of firmly established that the coven of witches were all female.
Right.
So
exactly.
It's like where's Manny Jacinto's character and all that?
If he ends up being a Sith apprentice, perhaps Sith Lord, Sith apprentice make their way, to the coven of witches. There could be a lot of things that we could get into with that. I just if there is a relationship beyond just that brief encounter, I don't know if we have 3 episodes to tell that story.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if we have enough time to do that. But assuming that all the episodes are going to continue to be like 30 minutes long, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not really sure. But Luke, I'll throw it to you. Like, Soul and the stranger definitely engage in some interesting dialogue. What kind of a master hides his face from his pupil? You tell me. What did you think about the back and forth exchanges between the two?
I was really gripped by this because obviously we don't, like you said, we don't know a lot about the stranger. So I'm hanging on every single word this guy is giving us. And yeah, when he did say, you don't remember me, or hinted to the fact that there was a previous encounter between them, it piqued my interest because obviously we know about, I think it's Olega is the planet where that Jedi temple was.
Olega, yes, very good. Luke's always
so we obviously know about that, and so I'm thinking, is there something more to that? Obviously, like Jay, like, is there something on Bryndock? Is there something that we haven't seen yet? And I'm leaning toward no, but I think it'd be kind of cool if the answer was yes. And then yes, Tyler, I'm agreeing with you that with 3 episodes left, I don't think we have enough time to explain that or flesh that out. Right. If that were to be the case, I am leaning more toward, I think it's just the apothecary run-in that they're referencing. But yeah, gosh, those two had so much banter because I feel like Qimir, he knows all of what has happened on Bryndock. Mae has told him, and I think that's really bugging Soul more than he realized it was going to. I think he's very, very unnerved that someone else knows his big secret that even we, the audience, don't even fully know. So I think he's very off his game, why he's super quick to go back to the shuttle to get messages back, because I think he's got something a little bigger that we know hiding, and I think he's worried that somehow this Sith or dark side person is going to reveal something bad, something horrible that he's done.
So I wonder if May even knows everything that happened on
It's a
Brindok,
good point
though.
too.
Like I don't think she probably is fully aware of what happened. Maybe so, but so I'm wondering personally. I think that the stranger, the Sith Lord here. I'm wondering if like they have to. I think have some sort of dip their toes into what happened at Brindok to some degree because all of this has to tie together. Like everything has to be interwoven together. At this point, I think Manny Jacinto's character and the dark side users have to be at least somewhat connected to what happened on Brindok to make the whole story come full circle
I can see that.
versus this is just like an Osha May thing. And that I think drives into the point of the series where I think it's the weakest is that the two like the main character of Osha and May, like the big characters, those two might be some of the weaker characters so far. And I really am enjoying Amanda Stenberg's performance, but I don't necessarily know, just how big of an importance necessarily that they're having. Like I'm much more interested in what happened on Brindog versus just what happens to like Mae and Osha. Like I'm just curious on what happened. Like I want to see, how their importance continues to be amplified. And maybe we're going to get that now that they've swapped. Like we could get like an Osha learning more about here. We could be getting, May learning some things from the Jedi perspective, which could really turn things on its head. But I'm curious to see how they tie all of these things back together. And so, yes, Luke.
Yeah, I think that the director of episode 3 is also directing episode 7. So I think that episode 7 is going to be our next and probably final flashback episode. So I think we're going to get a lot more in episode 7.
Right, and Dalton's saying here in the chat, like it'd be cool if the next flashback episode focuses on the perspectives of May and the Jedi on Brindok, since episode 3 was very much focused on Osha's tension with the witches. I think it has to, right? Like we talked about this a few weeks ago. Like we're going to be revisiting this, and it has to. The only other thing I would throw out is what if it follows neither of those perspectives, and it follows the stranger's perspectives, and Manny Jacinto somehow was there observing or was involved somehow, and we see it through like a perspective of his. I don't think that is going to be the case. I think we're definitely going to get like Soul explaining to one of the twins what happened, and the flashback episode is going to be kind of him explaining. We could also get what if we get like a dual explanation episode where Osha is learning from the stranger what happened while May is learning from Soul what happened, and this we kind of get a whole this whole story is now super twisted and convoluted. Granted, the some of the online Star Wars community would probably throw a fit about that because they might not understand what an unreliable narrator is, perhaps. But not trying to take shots at everyone, just certain people out there that are a little difficult sometimes. But moving on, Jecki and Mae get into an altercation that is pretty violent and pretty fun to watch the two of them go at it without sabers. They're just fighting each other. And I don't want to diminish anything from that altercation, but we are at the half-hour mark, and my favorite duel like part of this show is Jecki versus the stranger, one-on-one. When Mae is down, the stranger says you can learn something from this Padawan. Jecki goes dual sabers, even gets a little Ahsoka Tano-esque like smirk in battle. Give me your thoughts. Like, where are you with that duel? Because I thought that was my favorite part. Anytime someone's wielding two sabers to that level of like precision and skill, pretty impressive to see. Jay, what about you?
No, like I said though, I mean that was definitely that was my second favorite moment of the episode, because it's so rare to see someone dual wield lightsabers and to see like characters actually like Jedi dual wielding lightsabers properly, where it's like strike after strike after strike, which is how you're supposed to wield two lightsabers. But I will admit this was kind of like a harder part for me to like get my head around, because at first I'm like, well, wouldn't Jecki go after the stranger first? It felt a little bit weird. I'm like, okay, like I get that she wants to take in Mae, but I feel like she's kind of missing the bigger threat in that situation. So it was a little bit that was one of those things where I'm like, oh, that's a kind of an interesting decision. I don't know if I would have
Mhm.
made that, like, and to have like two lightsaber battles going on at the same time, I was like, it was
Right.
a little bit hard for me to like wrap my head around. But I mean, nonetheless, again, the choreography is great. It's just I was like, this. I'm not sure if this is really like the smarter
Mhm.
decision.
It felt well, it ends on that force push, and then everyone kind of gets thrown in all over the place. I wonder if, you know, this goes into some of the editing purposes, we're talking about. Whenever
Sure.
I see something like that, I just chalk it up to like maybe she hit a tree, she woke up, and oh, I gotta go take out Mae. She's right there.
Yeah.
The stranger's not there anymore, and
Yeah.
so she's just like, I'm just gonna go, punch this person that killed some Jedi Masters and who I think just killed, Master Kelnaka. It is weird. Like, we don't see any of that. And part of the
Yeah.
problem with that is we could discuss this, why this episode was broken off into two chunks. It's kind of weird that it gets broken off in two chunks.
Yeah.
Feels like it should just be one cohesive episode for the most part.
Right.
And I'm not really sure why the decision was to split it in half. They said one of the, I think it was one of the writers on the show, I believe, said something along the lines of like, you'll see after the second one, like why we had to do that. I still don't understand that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Luke, what about you in terms of the Jecki Mae, but into the Jecki and Stranger fight, and then you could comment on whatever else you'd like to, if in regards to the episode split as well.
I was gonna say, since you just ended on that, it is kind of weird how we are just so like stuck in the rut of like 8 episodes. Has to be 8. Has to be 8. And it's like, why? We could make it 7 if those two needed to be together. We could make it 9 or 10. Like, I don't understand why 8 is so necessary, but it's whatever.
It's so that members have to pay for 2 months worth of Disney Plus.
Well,
this might be part of it.
Probably the most real answer there.
Granted, Kenobi, which probably is the one you have the most eyes on, is 6 episodes. You know what I mean? But
like,
you give it the smallest budget of all of your stuff. Now we're going to get into the weeds of Star Wars Disney Plus programming. And I am in the middle. Like, so RG's talking about like how this, in the comments, he says this was meant for a binge watch. I'm in the middle on this because on one hand, it is classic TV to have these episodes end kind of in a cliffhanger-ish kind of unique way, but a lot of great storytelling still tells its own episode. The problem with these Star Wars shows, and the reason like they feel like they're supposed to be made for a binge watch, some of them, not all of them. Like Andor is a great episodic, for the most part, show. But this, maybe Ahsoka, is that it does feel like they just were like, we're going to make, 2 hours or whatever, 3 hours of content, like a big, long, extra long movie for 4 hours. And then we're just going to chop it up to fill out, like Jay said, these 2 months of programming, instead of saying, what's the story we want to tell in episode 1? What's the story we want to tell in episode 2? And so on and so forth. And I think that's why it feels like it's meant for a binge watch, is because it's not written as individual episodes. Like not every episode has a distinct...
I harped on that last week too.
Okay, I honestly did not have time to go back and watch. I'm sorry that I did not have time to go back and watch.
We're definitely with you on that.
Okay,
we're with you
because I am a fan. I want the weekly drop. I want a weekly drop. I don't want to binge watch a Star Wars show, because I feel like some of the great moments in shows get missed when you binge watch something from start to finish. But I also don't want to watch something that feels like it's getting chopped up like unevenly at the same time. Jay, do you have I'll give you the final word on this one. You have the final word on the whole, because I know you're thinking about writing a piece on this as well.
I was just about to mention that, and thanks for the pitch for me to hit the home run. But
don't lose. I gave you the softball. Don't whiff on this one.
No, I mean, I do have an editorial coming up on our website talking about should Star Wars ditch the weekly episode releases. And there are, like I talk in my like I mentioned in my article, that I hope to publish sometime soon.
Mhm.
There are pros and cons to this. There are people who like the weekly episode releases, who want the discourse, who want to hop online and talk to their friends about some of these big moments. And yeah, having a weekly release does give opportunity for that.
Mhm.
Having a binge watch show, on the other hand, there's the pro of, hey, you can watch it from start to finish and you can have all your answers that way. And that's
The continuity feels intact too, because
yeah,
things don't feel chopped up.
yeah, and then that's something that Luke and I discussed last week, but it's great to mention again that part of the reason why people are jumping to conclusions and forming their own opinions, part of it too is uninformed. Part of it is just crazy assumptions and people just jumping the gun. I feel like a lot of that could have been remedied if they just released it all at once. But hey, I mentioned this in my editorial coming up, but there are pros and cons. It's not a one size fits all situation. So yeah, I hope you guys can go ahead and check that out when it gets published on our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com. I hope to have
Jay
it
and
out
I are
again
yeah,
soon.
we're gonna do an episode where we're gonna kind of talk about that, maybe a little bit more in detail. He's gonna have the editorial, then we're gonna do a short, special 20-30 minutes just talking about what that looks like. You hit on something interesting beyond just because I think you hit the nail on the head. We plugged the editorial, but I think you hit on something beyond that, which is why maybe let's take this a step further instead of moving on real quick. Is
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
people are going to jump to they're going to not jump to assumptions maybe if they have this. I want to push back on that because I don't think that there is any instances in Star Wars history where fans have not jumped to assumptions or gone crazy on social media platforms even when they have all of the answers. And I think some examples of this are people that are they're going to find ways to try to be like, why is this, a thing? Why is that not a thing? And the weekly discourse would just be amplified into, 2 months of discourse after the show. And the weekly discourse, I think, from people that are just, there's a difference between discourse that is constructive criticism, like I do not like this because of maybe there's an editing thing, like we're talking about this choppy editing. There's also a big difference of, I celebrate Kiadi Mundi's birthday in 90 BBY every year, and because he's now in the
93
Star Wars
BBY.
show, this is somehow breaking everything that I hold so dear. I think there's a big difference to me in regards of what people are up in arms out each week. Because there is a level of we're not supposed to know. It's TV. I love watching something and not knowing what's going to happen next. And I don't understand why Star Wars fans, some Star Wars fans, can't watch the show. Maybe you're frustrated by something that happened from the standpoint of well, how come I don't know this? For instance, a lot of people are frustrated maybe that Manny Jacinto's character called himself you might call me a Sith. And but how are the Jedi? He's a Sith. The Jedi. There's 3 episodes left. How about we watch something? And I don't think that's not something that we should just cater to those people and just throw it all out there, because I think that doesn't solve any problem. That's just putting a band-aid over something a little bit more systemic. Some people just need to learn how to watch TV shows and understand that I'm not supposed to have my answers given to me in episode 4.
But I think
Also, what do you think happens when you read a book? You don't have all the answers on page 1. I mean, it's just simple media consumption.
But I think part of the reason too, though, is the fact that having such short episodes and having it come out every week only compounds onto that frustration. I think if these episodes were substantial, a longer longer length, were actually written with an hour in mind or so, and weren't just haphazardly cut and separated into 8 parts, I think that would definitely make that stress and make that source of contention lessen, because having to wait every week and then still maybe not even like the week after or even the week following that, not having your answers then can still be frustrating. And I still, I'm not trying to like, defend those people who are getting upset
I think you're
right after
arguing
episode
something
2.
different than those people.
Yeah,
You're
right.
definitely arguing something different.
Right. No, thank you for that. But like I think there should be something said for like actually changing the format so that
Right.
there's less like source of contention.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say you're like lumping in those same, because I think there is two distinct. But also, just if there's longer episodes, that doesn't necessarily remedy the situation. Because I watched House of Dragon season 2 episode 2 this week, and it was like 70 minutes or whatever, 72 minutes, so like an hour ish runtime,
an hour
before
plus
the credits, like
yeah.
And there were plenty of instances where I am questioning the story, given having read Fire and Blood, but like having looked at this, where it's like we're jumping ahead to these different moments and not necessarily filling in gaps in between that need to be talked about. It's like we're going for these big moments, and that's with an hour-long, show that they're doing. And I don't know if we just make these episodes longer, it's going to be. I think it's more of just, can we gear the episodes to be less choppy in our 30 minutes? Like, we have 30 minutes. Let's do that. And that's why it was interesting with, and we'll get back to the episode in a second, but with like Dave Filoni and Ahsoka had some of this problem. And that surprised me because Dave Filoni comes from a background of animation with Rebels and Clone Wars, where he is seamlessly, flawlessly able to tell 22-minute stories over and over. And so I was like confused on how that necessarily didn't always translate when they were writing this thing out to live action, which is why, this is obviously isn't written. Dave Filoni is not the showrunner of The Acolyte, but it's a similar situation of we're running into that problem. I just don't think that like separating it is going to solve it. It depends on the show. And I think this show, your argument is accurate. I think for this show, I think it would be a better binge just because of the nature that they broke this up. I think I would just wish that we might tweak the way we write the shows, so that way it does make the weekly release format like work a little bit, if that makes sense. Okay, Luke.
And before we move on from this story point of Jecki and the Stranger, Jecki and Mae, I actually didn't even give my thoughts on that but just real quick. I thought one of the very most interesting parts was their kind of confrontation inside Kel Naka's hut. And Jecki has one like handcuff on her and saying, "You're arrested in the name of the Republic for the murder of Torben, the murder of Kel Naka, and Dara." And then she says, "For the fire that's killed your whole family." And I was like, Jecki, don't say that. Like you're making a huge assumption here. And so obviously Mae is able to like use that rage to just completely get out from under this. And so I was like, that was incendiary. Oh my gosh.
It's been a bad day, Jecki. Like, I know it's been a rough day. You just got force pushed by something you called like, what is that? And you just got force pushed into oblivion. But like, come on, like you're arresting Mae on something that you heard that she might have done when she was 8 years old or whatever. I was like, woo. No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that. So let's fast forward to the main like final confrontation. Darth Arms, the Stranger, whatever his name is. He takes out Jecki, and that just crushes soul. Like you can just see that, and that was
crushes
jaw drop
soul
for me. And then it is revealed that Manny Jacinto's character is the masked villain, the Sith. So I have first question here. Not really a question, more of a comment. I'm curious what you guys think on this. When he looks over at Mae and just instantly switches his voice back to like, "Hello, like
Hello.
that unassuming kind of offbeat voice that he was using when he was just the apothecary. I thought that was the coldest, darkest moment in the whole episode. That this guy who just got done killing a child is killed several Jedi already, is just able to just flip a switch and turn into a new person, like almost like mocking her for not knowing as well. I want to know what you guys did. You guys catch that at first, like just how sadistic, twisted that was, and like what were your thoughts just seeing him go from like oh to hello, and then back to I'm gonna kill everyone.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I think that Manny Jacinto's character, this stranger, is the Sith or just dark side person who has the most like comedic effect or like humor or just like lightheartedness almost to he really like plays on words because like you just said, Jecki in episode 4 is saying, "What is that?" Saying that, not who is that, what is that? And so he kills her and someone says, you just killed Jecki. He goes, is that what its name was? And so it's like a mirror of like, you dehumanize him, he dehumanizes you.
Yep.
And then the little like, hello, like, yes, that I'm completely agreeing. That was cold. That was sinister. That was like sociopathic. That like something's not right up there. So
Oh man,
this is like one of the first times that I've been like scared of a dark side character. Usually they're a little bit more brooding or menacing or just brute force in your face, terrifying. This is like creepy. This is the first time I would say it's been like creepy.
You think of like the Vaders, the Mauls, the Savage Opress, even like a Supreme Leader Snoke. Like these are just, they radiate pure evil, cruelty, malice. But with his character, there's like nuance there too. Like just almost like you said, like the sociopathic nature to him of he is capable of worming his way into your mind in completely different ways than just taking a sledgehammer to you.
Yord says that too. He gets in your head and he stays there.
And stays
so
there.
It's unnerving.
Yes. So I'll throw it to you now, Jay. Build off of that a little bit in terms of like what we actually can even expect from this character moving forward, even like from that attitude. Because of course we get to the end of the episode and see him saying his little stuff to Osha, and he's not killing her. It's almost like he's taking care of her for a minute. It's almost like he turns into like this nurturing side. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's while you guys were talking, I was thinking about one character that I think we can compare it to. It's very Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Giancarlo Esposito's character in that series. But for everyone who's seen Breaking Bad, I mean, that's another character that just switches on a dime and that is just unassuming. And you think, oh, just friendly owner of this fried chicken shop. And then all of a sudden, the guy will just go like that. And then, he'll go, you know nothing about me, Walter Weiss. But, I mean, it's interesting, like, going forward now, I think that, like, Luke mentioned the unreliable narrator aspect to it, and I think that there's definitely going to be more exposition. There's more to find out about this character and about his motives, and it's a matter of, like, hey, are we going to trust what this guy says? Because we really can't. We can't trust this guy as we've seen, because, I mean, this guy has some crazy split personalities. But it'll be really interesting to see how that unfolds in the next episodes.
Which is a better moment? The double blade reveal with the dagger blade, and that kind of connects with the little knife, or is it the holding a saber to someone's head like a gun, or like a blaster, to someone's head, and which is the better, more sinister moment? Because obviously we have the reveal, which is the moment right after he kills Jecki, of course, but this one is just like how chaotic and crazy is it to just hold it up to someone's noggin like that? Jay, which one? Which one is the more sinister look here?
The second one for sure.
The second one? You going
Yeah,
with this one?
holding up a someone hostage like that, and then just pointing a lightsaber straight at them, like it's a gun, like you mentioned. That's really like that's some real big bad villain
Right.
action here, like action movie bad guy type stuff, which is really cool.
Luke, are you going saber to head or are you going double blade?
I was gonna go number 2, but I'll go number 1 now. Because
just for the sake of it, is
just
it
for the sake of the
because
show.
is it so
So
I think
the
this is the
red
more sinister
sabers.
look, but in terms of talk about entrance though, Luke. Talk about entrances because
Oh
that to me
man,
was one of the best entrances maybe for a villain that we've had. Like
yeah.
where
I
would maybe where
mean,
would you rank that just off the top of your head in terms of an arrival?
let's go with. I'm gonna say it's top 3 or 4 entrances for like revealing of a Sith character or dark side character. Because I think about Darth Vader coming down, standing on top of a TIE fighter in Rebels. I think about Kylo
That was
Ren's
pretty
just
awesome.
Episode 7. Like the way the movie starts is just him coming out menacing. And honestly, this with the helmet's broken, you know that the face is revealed. You don't know who it is yet, and you see the 2 just gorgeous red sabers. And yeah, the rain's coming down. He looks great, and his arms look amazing. Like he just looks like the most powerful dude. Like this is menacing to a
It's
T.
And it's just moments after we saw like Jecki with the dual wielding, and then she even gives a little smirk, right after this moment when the other one,
Yeah,
or her saber, ignites back. Talking about like arrivals too, I want to throw the first time we see Darth Vader in, just like like what that arrival means, just when he enters into the
the
Corellian
Tantive
freighter,
4.
the Tantive 4. So, oh my goodness, so good. Okay, so wrapping up, let's talk about his comments at the end, wherein Soul says, "You are like, what are you?" And he basically talks about how he's someone that wants to be free from like the oppression of the Jedi, wants to live and cultivate, wield his power as he likes, and some might call him a Sith. He doesn't come out and say, "I am a Sith Lord," and because Soul doesn't respond with a Sith Lord, but I'm curious what you guys interpreted that scene as. I've seen a lot of discourse online, and we could talk about the Kylo Ren like theme that shows up at the end for his character, and some people are looking at that as very direct and very, implicit in what this could mean. But also he doesn't flat out say, "Yeah, I'm a Sith," but he also doesn't say he's not a Sith. So I'm curious what you guys interpreted that reveal to be. Did you have an issue with the dialogue there, and if so, why? I'm curious. Go ahead and give me your thoughts on that, because I know we have to have some thoughts on that. That's probably the biggest takeaway for the villain in terms of dialogue from this episode. That's probably the biggest dialogue we have.
Yeah.
So let's go Jay here.
So like I didn't really have too many thoughts about that going into this episode, going into the show. But I mean, now that you mentioned it, and we were talking earlier about the Strange's fight style, how it's very, I think Luke mentioned it was very Kylo Ren. I think just talking about that, yeah, I think that even that lends more credits to the possibility this might be a Knight of Ren. And in all honesty, I think that would probably like fit the best in terms of the timeline.
Like the first
Because
Rin maybe, or something like that, or
yeah, one of the well, not only does it fit with the whole High Republic theme of this being like the golden age, and of like this being like a time of like the Jedi Knights being like at their peak, but like, hey, what if there are also like knights for the dark side? But also like that, I think even just like having it be a Knight of Ren, that would really like fit with the fact that, okay, the Sith are technically like still like not supposed to be existent during this time period. So I think like to have it, if if the stranger really is a Knight of Ren, that would make the most sense and just fill in like the lore gap that
Okay.
would that's been like at the core of like just
The Knights of Ren in general, but also maybe what's existing so far on the show.
like I mean, like one of the big questions is how is there Sith and dark side users during this time period when they're supposed to be non-existent,
But
like
we
supposed to be kind of like just in the background. So to have it be a Knight of Ren, I think would explain that and would explain that gap.
Okay. Luke?
Yeah, I felt like there were kind of like 3 different branches that my brain went. And so he says, someone like you, a Jedi, would call me a Sith. And so, yes, he's not outright saying he is. So there's the possibility he could be, and he's just being coy or being wordy. I know that in the Darth Plagueis book and the story that there is mention of a person who is further up in the Bane line who came very close to ruining it all, to revealing themselves to the Jedi. And so this could be that Baneite line person who has messed up and almost revealed themselves. Could be that person. It could be the first Ren, one of the early Rens of this lineage of, the Knights of Ren. So it's kind of where my 3 branches went of like, what are the ways that we could explain this? And also, the story's not over yet. It's
right.
It's
3
not
episodes
confirmed
left.
that, yeah. So like, if this is a Sith, if this isn't, it could easily go either way. So I mean, I'm coming up with theories of like ways it can and ways it can't. It's gonna be fine. I trust Leslie Headland.
So I initially, when I heard the music and thought, I was like, oh, Knights of Ren could be interesting. Maybe he's the first Ren person, because it's about like who wields this like saber and everything. And I thought about that and held on to that for a couple hours, and then I dismissed it pretty quickly. I would be upset at this point even if they went that direction, and very surprised. I kind of lean into what I'm seeing in some comments here about throwing shade at
That's a good point,
Jedi,
Dalton.
putting everyone in those boxes, because I don't think it makes sense to go the Knights of Ren route, because we're in the High Republic. Yes, that's sequel era. It all connects, but that's not, I don't think, what this story is trying to do. I don't think that's the heart of the story.
I'm with you there.
I'm okay if he's not a Sith at all, and he is just kind of this lone dark side user that's throwing the word Sith around, because ultimately, and correct me if I'm wrong, this show wasn't necessarily marketed as like the Sith show. It was said it's going to be from like a dark side like perspective, that it's going to be about how maybe the dark side of the Force starts infiltrating its way in the Jedi, which implies the Sith are involved, or implies Sith in general. But I don't think that necessarily the Sith have to be the ones directly involved in what's happening here. I think their fingerprints are going to be over this. I don't think he has to be a Sith for that to still happen. I think he could be manipulated by Sith. He could have been trained by someone who is a Sith Lord, but not necessarily the apprentice. I think ultimately he might get squashed like a bug by someone who is a Sith Lord that thinks you're out of line, whether it's the actual, Sith Lord and he's the apprentice and he's cutting him off, or if he is just, kind of like when Palpatine showed up to Mandalore to, put Savage and Maul in their place in Clone Wars, because there can only be, you guys are messing up my plans. There's only 2 Sith. You guys are in the way of what I'm trying to do. And I wonder if the Sith is like, okay, taking a little bit of page out of what Luke's saying with the Bane stuff. And it's like, you're getting too close to revealing that there's other dark side, users out here. So I need to squash this right now. But the damage maybe is ultimately done to the Order from the standpoint of their reputation ultimately might be tarnished. Things are going to happen that cannot be remedied, because they're just going to go on this path that of no return that we see in the prequels. I also want to get your guys' thoughts on this. I will continue to push back on this until the show is over, and I'm feel like I've been proven wrong on this. I'm a little bit worn down by all of the talk about, well, there can't be Sith in this show because the Jedi, say the Sith are extinct for millennia. They're not around. The Jedi aren't supposed to be around this time period. First of all, Ki-Adi-Mundi like kind of the biggest dumbass in the prequels because he says the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Obviously, you're wrong on that. He's sitting in the chamber of Palpatine's office, and he's like, Count Dooku is a political idealist, not a murderer. Clearly wrong on that. The dude has brunch with Palpatine once a week, it seems, up in, Senate headquarters and can't realize that he's a Jedi Master. So I'm like supposed to believe that these all-knowing Jedi are going to be able to sniff out a Sith that's, if it's even revealing itself to them. I mean, Qui-Gon, like we've said this, but Qui-Gon fought a Sith on Tatooine, and he's like, I fought a Sith Lord. They didn't believe him until after the dude had to go die for him to finally get, them to believe what he was saying. So just because there is someone even saying that they are a Sith, we have to remember that the Sith in the Jedi's eyes have been extinct for so long. In their eyes, have been extinct for so long that, this is like 1,000-year-old history to them. They're not waking up in the morning thinking about the Sith, like ever. Because this is probably stories that they're told in Jedi history class when they're 5-6 years old, that if they want to learn more about, they go to the archives. No, they're learning about how to become one with the Force. They're being starting to be the watchdogs for the Republic. They're not, thinking of the Sith at all. We are projecting the Sith into this show because we know the Sith are out there. But from the Jedi's perspective, it's like you're saying that ghosts are real, and they're like, they're not real. But if we're watching the show, like we're watching Ghostbusters, we know that like the ghosts are out there and there needs to be some busting that needs to happen. But they don't know that. And I think that we're projecting that because like the first thought in their heads when they saw someone trained was Splinter Jedi Order or Rogue Jedi that are on the loose or an unidentified Force group. Like the word Sith isn't even registering. Like it's not even in their, Jedi radar. And I think that we have to take a step back and remember that for these last 3 episodes, as much as we maybe want to see the Sith, but also don't want the Sith to be so overt because it's not even like on their mind. So I kind of think that even him just saying that line doesn't necessarily mean, oh my gosh, the Sith have exposed themselves, because like I don't think that that's necessarily what's happening. And we need to, again, we have to be patient and watch this, because unfortunately for this show, Jay has not gotten the rights to Lucasfilm headquarters yet to release the last 3 for us next Tuesday.
Keep working, Jay. Come on.
Do this. But hopefully, if we get that editorial done this weekend, they might change their minds by next week and we'll have all our answers on the 2nd. All right. I'm off my soapbox. I'm done. Jay, you can respond to that, or if you want, we can move on to what happens at the end with the twins switch. I can take a deep breath now.
No, you know what? Like, I was going to comment, but like, I think like we need to comment on the twin switch, because that to me was like, alongside Master Soul deciding not to kill the stranger. Like, I think that even the twin switch decision, both of those decisions to me didn't make a whole lot of sense. I think, like for these two, for both Master Soul and the stranger, they're just gonna find out right away. Mm-hmm. I think like they're way too, like, for one, like Mae has the marking on her head. I mean, I don't think you're really gonna get rid of that. And then 2, like these guys like are Force users and who can tell the difference. I mean, Osha tried to fake out the stranger when he was the apothecary, and it's so like we saw like the apothecary could actually like tell right away. I don't know, like that was, again, like going back to what I said early on in the show. That was one of the things that like I thought like this episode was just like it had like questionable character moments. So I'm like, really, like I don't know if I like that was really like. Like from a writing standpoint, like even the right decision from a writing standpoint,
Like we're supposed to just buy in
Yeah.
Soul on this 5-hour trek back to the ship is not gonna realize that, he's with Mae. And maybe he does. We'll see. But go ahead, Luke.
The only thing I have that could possibly work against that, or like for the decision,
Mhm.
is that Qimir, he has already been described by Yord as someone who constantly is going into your mind. And so I think he's very quickly going to realize when he goes into this person's mind, this is Osha, not Mae. For Master Soul, he's shown, like in episode 1, he goes into the guy's mind to calm it down, to find out more information about what happened in the attack. And I think this is more of an act. This is pure speculation here. I think for him to go into someone's mind or use the Force for this kind of thing we're talking about is more of maybe an active use of the Force and not something that he's just passively going to pick up on. And so I think if Mae is doing a good enough job, she could trick him into the next couple episodes of thinking that she is Osha. Because I don't think Soul has a reason to be like mind probing Osha right now. So there's, in my own feeble attempt, there's like a little explanation of maybe why this could work on the light side of things. But Tyler, I think you're not feeling so great about that. What do you got?
What is it that Palpatine says in episode 9? Like, do not mind Luke's feeble rebuttal, my faithful. No, so I see what you're saying, but in the High Republic era, and I think in a lot of Star Wars in general, it's very clear that powerful Force users can sense, like, the people that are close to them have very distinct feelings in the Force. Like, Soul's able to feel that the stranger is familiar to him, whether it's just because of the brief encounter as the apothecary, or as Jay said, it's about like something that goes deeper than that, possibly. He has to know very soon that Mae is not Osha, because they spent years together. And as a powerful Force user, there's going to be some sort of familiarity. So either A, he needs to find out that that's Mae very soon in the next episode, like very soon. Or we know that Mae is powerful in the Force. We know that she possesses something from the Coven of Witches. Perhaps we learn a little bit about that, and like she's able to project, something like kind of blocking in the Force. Like Palpatine is able to hide himself in the Force from the Jedi using the dark side. Maybe that's something that Mae is able to do if she's using the dark side of the Force, or some sort of Force ability from the witches. She's able to kind of hide that and just go based off of appearance. But again, I kind of with Jay here. Like, he better, this like facade shouldn't shouldn't last very long. And I'm wondering what her goal is by doing the switch. I think it's just her motives are so unclear, because she was super devoted just, the beginning of episode 4, had the big switch, which was a big switch, but I could kind of get on board with it because she just learned her sister was alive. So I'm like, okay, you learned the person you love the most is alive. Of course you want to maybe jump ship and go be with them, but now you're with that person, and obviously she wants to arrest you, but like, you switch places with them. It was just kind of I don't know what her motive is. I really want the next episode to start off with like, what is Mae's motive and purpose for doing the switch. And I also want Soul to figure that out too, because I think the two of them could have a very interesting conversation, and we could get a lot of answers even about what happened at Bryndock. And it's Mae and Soul having that conversation instead of Soul and Osha, like we thought. What do you think Manny Jacinto's character, the stranger, and Osha, like, what do you think the plan is there? Like, what do you think's going on with that? Because obviously he didn't seem upset that she was left behind. He seemed like, okay, let me just say some really cryptic things real quick, and I'm gonna jump in.
From Osha's perspective, though, she's waking up and she has no idea what's going on. So it's like, okay, well, even there, I mean, if I'm Mae and I'm making this switch, you need also Osha to be in on it. Otherwise,
not if you leave her alone and like you sail away on your ship. She might not have, like, she can't communicate or anything,
Yeah, but that's like if your goal is to try and not get figured out,
mm-hmm.
and if your goal is to try and leave on this planet and hopefully like live a peaceful life, and away from the stranger.
Right.
Like it was just odd because I'm like, yeah, you're also leaving your twin sister behind, who you obviously like care deeply about. And it was just like overall, like that was like one of the most weirdest decisions so far.
Yeah, they need to sort out what her motive is behind that very soon into the next episode, because
Right.
that makes very little sense right now. Of course, if we get on here next week because they don't do that, like we can have a different discussion. So, like, what do you think that like the stranger is going to do with Osha now that Osha is left behind? What are we thinking? Like, just give me like on the top of your head. Like, is I'm flirting with the idea that we could see Osha give into the dark side, like, and become the acolyte that Mae was supposed to be after she learns maybe what happened on Brindog, and
You think?
he could from because we all know it's all about perspective. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that what the stranger tells Osha is going to be exactly what happened on Brindog, but if Osha believes it and it's something that paints Master Soul and the Jedi as individuals that corroborate with Mae's side of the story, which is the Jedi destroyed their home, and she learns that she's been lied to for most of her life by people she trusted and considered family. In that moment, I could see her maybe turning into a dark side type threat, some sort of and giving into being the acolyte that Manny Jacinto is looking for.
I can see that, and I think that actually be really cool.
What about you, Luke?
I'm gonna need so much more context. You're right, but yeah, with the stranger and Osha, I am afraid because I really like Osha, and so I'm afraid that she is going to buy into whatever lies he's going to spin, or possibly the truth that he spins for her. And so I always want these characters to do the right thing, and it sucks that I can see a clear path forward that Osha might really just buy into what he's saying after a lot of convincing. I don't think she's going to be convinced very quickly because she seems like she really does have her head on her shoulders. She doesn't seem very conflicted, really, even.
I mean, she
So I
stops
think
people from killing, the stranger.
yeah. So I do think it's interesting if she could maybe even pull something back from him, or if she could maybe even change something in him that could change his course going on forward. So I'm interested to see who wins the kind of battle of the morals, really, in that relationship.
Jay, you mentioned earlier that you felt like it was a mistake, Osha stopping Soul from killing the stranger. Can you expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah,
I disagree a little bit.
I think that well, it's the like I know it's like the classic, oh, Jedi don't kill, like Jedi
like
don't
the
kill,
unarmed, because he was
an unarmed thing and all of that. But I'm like,
oh, he had arms.
I mean, like it's the same thing for it's like the Mace Windu episode 3 situation. Like I'm like, kill Palpatine. You have it right here. You could solve all your problems right here, and then that's it.
But look at what Soul was doing, like in that moment. Like that wasn't. I felt like in that moment it wasn't Master Soul the protector. That was rage that was coming from him, like just in the way he is faced.
As a protector, you have to. As a protector, you have to take lives sometimes.
Right. I'm not saying you don't, but I don't think he was acting as a protector in that sense. Like the Jedi are supposed to push off those. Of course, everyone, they're human. Like they're gonna get upset, and like anyone. But I like in that moment, I like when Jecki dies and he's seeing that. I don't think he's attacking from that. I think Osha yells at him because she could sense that he was going down a dark path in that moment. And there's also a standpoint of like, we need to learn more about this.
Sure.
I thought the more questionable thing was like when I thought maybe it was they could have said something about taking him prisoner or something if they could.
Yeah.
But instead the bugs carry him away.
Yeah.
And I
No,
thought that
no.
was kind of a funny way to do that.
I agree with you. Like, okay, if you're not going to kill this guy, take him prisoner and make sure he's bound up, he can't use his powers. Bring him back and make sure he's secure and like in a place where you can
Right.
keep your eye on him. Instead, okay, so you know, it's one thing to not kill him,
Mhm.
and then it's another thing to attach a flashlight on his back and then like have like the bugs try and kill
Umber
him.
moths.
Right, you know, like those guys. I mean, like, and then like I knew right away, as soon as like the bugs are taken away, I'm like, he's gonna live.
Of course, of course. I don't think we were meant to think he was gonna die, and I think at that point they were just like, "Let's get out of here," too.
But like,
However, they
so
go ahead.
so in my head though, like it's like Master Soul like failed on two fronts. If you're like, okay, you either kill him or you don't, and if you don't kill him, bring him back and secure him.
Did Obi-Wan fail by not going and killing Anakin in Episode 3 when he was burning alive?
Yeah.
He failed.
Yes. I mean,
He
like,
failed in Kenobi then as well.
No. I'm saying no.
Anakin
Actually,
succeeded
yes.
when he beheaded a
No.
defenseless Count Dooku.
Here's the thing. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. No. There are people. No. There are people who legitimately. This is like a legitimate theory, which is that like Obi-Wan Kenobi has failed. Is like part of the reason. Like the Star Wars like if it wasn't for some of these decisions by Obi-Wan Kenobi, like you know the Star Wars series would be on a whole different trajectory, right?
Of course.
And it's so like I'm not saying that like Obi-Wan is a bad guy, but I'm saying that there are certain decisions where I'm like, no, I think I disagree. You know, I think that like, you know, like like you brought up Anakin burning on the lava. I think, yeah, you kind of like, dude, you should just put him out of his misery.
I think in a like a granular sense of looking at it from a bird's eye perspective, sure, you know, that was his brother that's like burning, you know, alive, and I'm like, you know, in that moment, I think he still had love for Anakin, you know, and going forward and just doing that, he felt even in the Kenobi show, there is something, and this is why Obi-Wan I think is one of the best Jedi. There is something about like a nobility about the Jedi that should exist, and that, you know, like we don't want to be warriors, and we don't want to take life, and it's all about preserving life. Now that doesn't mean they won't kill. I mean, we see Jedi that they do what needs to be done, but there is something I think at least noble about what Obi-Wan did in that instance. And I think Soul, if he just acts out in rage, you know, and does that, and if there are more Jedi willing to cross that line, because there's definitely going to be more missions that involve in the Jedi's history or in the future that are going to be very harrowing and difficult. And if the more you cross that line and start killing people that are threatening the people around you, as horrible as they are, where is that line, you know, going to stop? It's like how you are doing that. I think that while it might seem a little like overkill to not kill him just because he's not armed, even though he's right there, you know, in front of you and he's killed 7 of your friends, there is a level of like, this is not the Jedi way. And it's how corny that sounds. But I think that also, you know, kind of holds true to everything of like the like Batman and the Dark Knight, trilogy, like could easily, you know, kill, you know, the Joker a few times or kill some people, and like a lot of things would have been stopped, but like there's certain lines that they won't cross.
I get it, like that's part of the, you know, like the code and the moral ethics of those characters and of Star Wars. I'm just saying, if I was there, get off your moral high horse and just end this guy already.
Jay's he does what needs to be done. He's the Jedi they send in, like he's the special ops Jedi they keep under the wraps, like they don't show him to the rest of the galaxy. Luke, chime in.
Jay, that was insane.
I'm the guy who gets who does what needs to be done.
Jay's
You will
Thanos.
try.
Thanos Jedi. He puts on the Infinity Saber Gauntlet. I'll do this myself.
I'm the Black Ops agent, like in the shadows, who's like, who has like the sniper like scope on the target. Whatever you say, say the word and I'll do it.
When Soul didn't strike, that's when Jay was in the trees and he said, "I'll take him out." There we go, and it's over.
I will say I am glad that Soul was stopped from killing him, because I'm really with you, Tyler, that there is just like, you kill one person. I think we kind of see it with Anakin, like we've been saying, but like season 7 Clone Wars, we see him just kill Admiral Trench, no problem. We go on and just a few months later, weeks or whatever, and he's beheading Count Dooku, no problem. He's a little against it, but it doesn't take a lot of pushing for him to do it. And so it's a slippery slope down the moral high ground that you've built up. So, and you slide fast down it. And so I think for Soul to stop there, to not kill him, I think it is important, because you kill one, what's 2, and then what's 3, and then what's 10. So I think it's important that he stops, and that it is the Jedi way that peace prevails, even if that means this guy gets away. That means you're protecting his life and his chance to at least do good in the future, because not everybody's soul should be judged right now.
And it's a good argument. That's a good point, though. Like, not everyone's soul maybe should be judged right now. But like Jay's saying, he just slaughtered everyone, like, for fun at the same time. And I think it ultimately comes down to the core of the Jedi should be about protecting the light and pursuing the light. And in that moment, I don't think Soul would have been doing those things if he killed Soul. You could argue that he might have been protecting the light by ending the stranger, but I don't think he was also pursuing the light in that moment. I think you could just feel, because I think it's when he stops the saber afterwards and he just takes a deep breath. You see like the tension release in his shoulders, like a little bit. He's like, okay, I need to breathe. Remember, like, I am a Jedi. Like, I need to breathe. I need to connect with the Force in this moment. But I mean, it's a good argument. Like, could this all have been stopped if Master Soul would have just, ended him right there? Could we have done this? Or, a number, or if, Qui-Gon's fighting on Tatooine. What if Obi-Wan just jumped down? They just went ahead and they tried to fight Maul right there. Maybe they could have ended a lot of problems later on. But I again, this episode was really fun. I just thought there were a few choppy things that we've talked about, but the choreography was fantastic. I really did appreciate that. Which character will you miss more, Jecki or Yord? Which one?
I am going to go with Jecki as well.
Yeah.
She had become such a good friend of Osha. They had a really, really good bonding moment there in 4. So I was really stoked to see where they went and their friendship blossom. And we don't get to see that.
I'm going to miss Jecki more from a show perspective. I'm going to miss Yord more for the memes, like the meme perspective online. For sure. The Yord horn. Fantastic. But, it was said something about Star Wars. And so the last thing I want to leave us with for this show, Leslie Headland has been adamant in talking before the show. She said that this show is not going, it's kind of like Luke, it's not, going to go the way you think. She said it's going to lead you thinking one thing that feels obvious, and it's not going to be that thing.
That's Luke?
No. I'm saying Leslie Headland was saying that before. I'm saying Luke, like Luke Skywalker, not like not like okay. That's on me. This is the problem when you have a Luke in a Star Wars chat. Things can get
blame my parents.
No, we're Luke in episode 8 when Rey's saying she's gonna do this, and he's like, "This is not gonna go the way you think." I feel like Leslie Headland's been preaching that to some degree in the marketing of this show and the hype. And I just can't imagine that the Manny Jacinto's character being revealed as the person behind the mask is what she's talking about, because that felt so obvious, pretty much. Like it felt like, and I thought that was okay. I think it was handled perfectly fine. I think it was perfectly fine what they did. So I wonder, and I don't think she's talking about just, these two people dying, boom, boom. So I feel like this whole, it's, going to lead you someplace that you aren't expecting. I think we're still waiting to see what that is. And I'm curious on your guys' front if you agree with that, or you think that, like, these first 5 episodes, that's kind of where she was heading, and then we're going to be heading in a pretty singular, clear direction moving forward. Or do you think that we're still in for some major, surprises along the way? Because obviously Brindok's going to happen, and we'll probably be like, oh my goodness, that. But I think most people consensus is that the Jedi escalated things. There was a confrontation. Like, it would have to be, I think, pretty egregious for us to maybe think, oh my goodness, that's what happened. So I'm curious what you guys think on, from that sentiment from Leslie Headland. Who wants to go first?
Jay,
Luke, would you like to go?
I think that, like, even what you mentioned earlier, Tyler, that I think even that the whole twin switch is a likely possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I think that even might be what Leslie is referring to.
Okay, that could make sense, definitely, given that there's no indication of Osha being anything close to a dark side or down a dark path. She's anything but that, so far in the show. Luke, what about you? Luke Sheehan, like you, Luke, not Luke Skywalker. I want to be clear. It's obviously you're pretty close. It's hard to distinct.
Thank you. I thought Mark Hamill was going to pop up as a fourth box here and just start answering. But yeah, I think there's got to be something with the twins. I'm 50-50 on the twin switch is going to be our singular focus, or a more, you're saying that there probably can't be something much more egregious on Brendok, but I'm going to go ahead and say sure that there is, and maybe that's the twist. So I'm kind of between the two, that like we're going to need a big revelation of intentions with Mae, and also see what in the world has happened truly on Brendok that has made Kelnako like flying through the air. He's scratching Torben's eye. Like, what's going on there? So I think those are our two big question marks that need answered.
I'm still wondering like what's gonna happen, because Kelnako, because we hadn't seen that yet. So like
there's still like 2, 3, 4 scenes that we haven't seen yet from the trailers.
Well, I mean, like, when Leslie was saying these things, we hadn't seen that snippet, so
true. Yes.
Like, we don't know, like, from that lens, we wouldn't know that's coming. So maybe it is gonna go, but like I still think most people are like, oh, forced possession, like whenever we see Torben's eyes go black. And so I'm curious to see what's in store for us. It's gonna be fun. I think next week we get picking up right where we left off here, I would imagine, with him going back to Coruscant. Vernestra will probably make her way to that planet. I think that's the plan. Like, I think when we see her and the light whip come out, I think what's going to happen is she's just going to use the light whip to take out a couple bugs that are flying above her, and that's how we're going to be introduced to the light whip. And she's like
puts it away,
inspecting that planet, and then we'll get into the twin switch, and then 7 will be kind of like the flashback. I hope it's from like dual perspectives maybe, and then the finale will be 8. I don't know what you guys agree on that point. Like, you think it'll kind of be a similar format of present, past, present sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the next episode is going to be a combination of flashbacks and present. Yeah.
Okay, that'll be fun. I am looking forward to it. Any final thoughts? We've gone an hour and a half on this episode, which there was a lot to unpack, that's for sure. You have any like final words of wisdom, thoughts on the episode? Just anything you want to point out, good or bad, whichever one you want. Jay?
Soul should have killed the stranger.
Jay's new editorial is moments in Star Wars where the good guys should sever someone's head. That's going to be the next editorial.
Top 10 times murder was okay.
Like, it would be interesting if they did like a spoof thing of like, those memes where it's like they change one thing that happened and like then they go directed by and in the credits. That would be You could do a couple of those for Star Wars. That's for sure. Like Revenge of the Sith, like, he's like, he's not kill him. It's not the Jedi way. And Mace Windu just kills him, and it's like, and scene. Like, there we go. All the good stuff. Luke, what do you got?
So help me out here. When the very end, when the stranger is walking up to who we know as Osha, does he force heal her wound on her side? It seemed like she had a wound on her side, and he kind of like he kind
I missed
of
that.
swiped.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say I've only watched this episode once, but it looked like the same kind of animation where on Kef Beer, Kylo Ren gets stabbed through,
Yeah.
and Rey heals him, and the flesh kind of comes back.
Yeah.
It was a
I
little
need to go
dark
watch.
on my TV, so I'm like, is that what I saw? So I'm kind of wondering if Qimir had like a little healing ability on show there.
You're talking about like at the end there when
He's
That's
saying the
hilarious.
cryptic stuff, and
Okay,
he's coming
I'll
up
have to
her,
go
so-
look at that. I missed that then. I completely missed
And
that.
maybe
I
I'm
was-
seeing things. Okay, so
No, I'm pretty sure she
Okay.
he heals her.
yeah, so that was
Which we haven't
very
seen that
interesting
from
to
a
me.
dark side person, have
No,
we? Like
so
in
that
terms
is
of like
really
force healing.
weird. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go, look at that because we're gonna go fast forward to the end now of that episode. Okay. I don't have anything else to add. Please, I interviewed Tessa Gratton, the author of Temptation of the Force, last week, and that interview dropped, on our YouTube channel and social media, or sorry, in our podcasting platforms on Tuesday. Please go check that out, or Monday. Go check that out. It was such a fun interview. Had a
I'm
For
great
those
checking it
that
out
don't
time.
know,
tomorrow.
though, Tessa Gratton is the author of
What?
Temptation of the Force.
Yeah, did I not say that?
I
Did I
don't
just
believe
gloss
so.
over that?
I thought you did,
Yeah,
but
Okay. Yeah,
maybe
author,
I'm
Tessa
wrong.
Gratton,
Maybe I'm wrong.
author of Temptation of the Force, Path of the Seat, Defy the
Yes.
Storm, several High Republic books. She writes a short story in Tales of Light and Life. We had a great discussion on romance and Star Wars. We talked about her love for Ewoks as well, got mentioned. We talked about, just her, something I really appreciated about her was how much Tessa Gratton loves a rebel and loves the idea of rebellion, and how she's able to interweave rebellion and romance and like intertwine the two into a Star Wars novel. I thought that was a fantastic.
okay. So what I'm hearing is her and Claudia Gray are going to go in for Lost Stars 2.
Oh,
Let's go.
please, no, we don't need twice the emotional damage in Lost Stars too. But yeah, so it was a great interview. Make sure you go watch or listen to that. Check out the other stuff on our podcasting platforms. The Timeline show is going to be going out on Saturday mornings now instead of Mondays, because I'm gonna be having a Star Wars discussion every Monday that comes out on something related. This next Monday should be Jay and I's conversation on Star Wars Outlaws gameplay and some questions we have before the game's release and some answers that we got from some of the recent trailers and stuff that they revealed recently in the last few weeks. So that is a really fun conversation. Had to have Jay on to talk about that because Jay is the gaming guru. I have Luke and I started our mission of the months. That's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. We got a Dave Filoni Heir to the Empire for part 3 of Star Wars Newsnet Movie Talk with Miguel. And then if you remember Paul, who used to come on our streams, the two of us are going to have a conversation on Rey Skywalker, past and future, talking about what her legacy from the sequels will mean going into her new film and what we're hoping to see from Rey Skywalker in the new Rey movie, before we get any of the details on that. So stay tuned. That's kind of what the month of July is going to look like for the Monday podcast. And then on Fridays, I'm sorry, I'm just like unloading YouTube content here.
Go for it.
And so on Fridays now, every week, Josh Atkins on our site does a great character spotlight video or article. And he's done like Jedi Moon Day. He's done like a lot of other, like he did Wookiee Jedi. He's doing these character spotlights for basically like B, C, D tier like characters. And so I went up to Josh and was like, what if we, not every single article, but for some of these articles, we did a corresponding video basically highlighting some of the things you're talking about and then expanding on a couple of things that, from a visual perspective. So we're going to start having like who is character spotlight videos on YouTube, coupled with plugging his article for like the more in-depth read as well. So all of that is coming your way. Luke, joining me for the Timeline show every week. So check that out on Saturdays and you'll see him on some of the Monday shows. And Jay, take it away.
Yes. I have my own YouTube gaming channel called Good Games Dude. So I appreciate you talking about some of my background in regards to even just Star Wars Outlaws and talking about video games. But if you'd like to check out more of that, feel free to check out my YouTube channel called Good Games Dude. This weekend, I'll be having a new video talking about Gears of War and why it's a gaming essential. So no matter if you've never played a video game or just like a big, huge Gears of War fan, please join me up on Good Games Dude up on my YouTube channel.
Go like and subscribe to Good Games Dude, as well as the Star Wars Newsnet YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe here for your weekly Thursday night Star Wars Newsnet live discussions. You can join us every week, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Next week, we'll be doing Acolyte episode 6. Mondays or Tuesday mornings, we'll have a special Star Wars discussion for you every week. Saturdays are only for the Star Wars canon timeline, where we and Luke break down something from every single canon piece in Star Wars, going in order on the whole timeline. It's a lot of reading, folks, or a lot of watching, so we're doing it for you, so you don't have to. Stay tuned for other shorts, and always go to Star Wars Newsnet for articles on literally everything that has to do with Star Wars. I can promise you, in terms of some of the like behind the scenes, the more detailed, comprehensive stuff that you're not getting from the major trades, you can go to Star Wars Newsnet, and we will expand on that in ways that, you know, are really geared towards Star Wars fans, but from a sense of like professionalism. Like, we're not going to try to we don't clickbait, you know, you with different things here. So we'll see you guys next Thursday. Luke, Jay, thanks for hopping in. Thanks for letting me get some things off my chest from the last couple of weeks. Always appreciate Star Wars chats with the two of you on Thursday nights. It is truly the highlight of my week. Everyone in the chat, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you all. We'll see you here next week for Light and Life. Remember, we are all the Republic.